I thought she was in trouble, Reverend Cleveland. I landed, got to her campaign headquarters. They said she's at the Harris-Stowe. So I said, well, what's the address? I'll get a touch up to you. That's how me and Gwen go back. Let me say this. As you meet today, and as you hear this battle, at the same moment, I'm told right now there's a court proceeding going on here in St. Louis about a constitutional question of voter ID in the state of Missouri. Many of us do not respond to civil rights unless it is bloody and dramatic. If we were talking about a police shooting, we would all be up in arms, and we should be if it was the wrong shooting. If we were talking about somebody call us a name, we'd be all up in arms, and we should be. But when we talk about things like this, it is hard to energize us because we do not understand the complexities of the issue. First thing we need to understand is they purposely make it complex because they depend on the complexity to bring down the energy level of resistance. But it's really not that complex at all. This is a design to try and disenfranchise millions of voters around this country by those that never wanted to see a lot of people voting in the first place. We have gone, last week, as Congressman Clay said, we walked from Selma to Montgomery, 10 to 12 miles a day. Chairman Cleaver was there for the kickoff. As we went across the Edmund Pettus Bridge, he marched with Congressman John Lewis, who was beaten on that bridge 47 years before. And Mrs. Ethel Kennedy, the widow of Robert Kennedy and others, marched behind Chairman Cleaver, and all of us went across that bridge and we continued on. Well, in those days, they were fighting Jim Crow. Today, we are fighting James Crow, Jr. Esquire. He's a little more polished than his daddy. He's a little more educated. He talks in a more refined way, but the results and the goals are the same. Jim Crow said, I'm going to have a poll tax. I'm going to ask you how many bubbles on a bar of soap. I'm going to ask you to recite the Constitution verbatim. James Crow Jr. is too smart for that. He says you have to have government photo ID. You got to be able to prove with just this particular ID who you are. Well, Mr. James Crow Jr. Esquire, why do we need to do that? Well, we've got to prevent voter fraud. Well, show us where there has been voter fraud. Why are you trying to prevent something that has never been there? According to the Bush Justice Department, there was 0.003% voter cases. Some of them not voter fraud. So you're trying to have a solution, looking for a problem, rather than a problem in need of a solution. So therefore your motive must be different because you're not solving a problem, you're creating a problem. The fact of the matter is, the Brennan Institute has said that if these laws go through in 38 states, 5 million people will be disenfranchised. So you would rather risk 5 million people's voting on a problem that has nobody that is committing fraud. So the motive must be different. Now, immediately the critics say, Reverend, you got to have ID. I have to have ID to get on a plane. I just flew in. You got to show your ID to get on the plane. That's right. We believe you should have ID. Let's have the same ID we had when Ronald Reagan ran, and George Bush Sr. ran, and Bill Clinton ran, and George Bush ran. We always had ID to vote. But why